Welcome everyone to the work session. Okay, no, I think it's two of you. Welcome to the work session of March 23rd, 2026. It's 4 p.m. in Aspen. And before we start with our scheduled items, let me ask, does council have any questions on the information memo which discussed the stage 2 water shortage and ongoing work to continue to assess the drought situation, and the memo on the outdoor dining leases? Bill?
I do on the stage 2 water shortage, and I've said it before, but I've been thinking about it continually since then. And as I said before, I do not think that financial penalties for water reduction are our most effective means of accomplishing what we need to accomplish given the current situation. There's a high likelihood, I think, and the memo insinuates as much, that we'll be moving to stage 3. And I think that we should be thinking in different ways about how to effectuate the type of behavior and the type of water reductions that we need to ensure that there's water for our critical functions. So we one example amongst many is like we don't have any regulations or incentivization for xeriscaping right now in this community. We have water efficient landscaping review, but penalizing people in the wallet isn't accomplishing as much as what systemic change should accomplish in this regard. And if this is a pattern that might stick around for a while in terms of a shortage of water and drought years, then I think that we should be looking at this differently. And I don't think that penalizing people financially, that I think we either have people who are going to feel those penalties, or we have people who don't care about those penalties. And there's not a lot in between. And it's just not going to change behavior in the way that we needed to. So I think we should really think about this differently. And I don't think we should wait and do studies and come up with all sorts of policy resolutions. I think we should start immediately, especially if we're going to move into stage 3 sometime soon. I think we should think about that in a different way.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the suggestions. And I think if anyone or all of us have suggestions on further incentives or ways to get people to reduce their water use, we should funnel them into Pete. John, your comments?
Yeah, I agree with Bill. I do think we need to incentivize less water use, but currently what we have are the tools we have. And I think that's the only path forward because, as you pointed out, it's a little late to be doing studies. I think the time has passed for that. We need to act now, and we need to act decisively. Rachel and I just learned last week that currently Lake Powell is 5 feet above power pole. That means 5 feet less water, no electricity is being generated at Lake Powell. Now, spring runoff is going to bring that level up a bit, but not very much because of what we've seen here this winter.
Yeah.
We're going to hit power pole at the end of this summer. Things are going to get really crazy really fast here.
Yeah. On top of that, they are expecting to do large releases from Blue Mesa, Flaming Gorge, and Rudeye Reservoir just to try to pump up Lake Powell. So we'll see what happens with that. But the general idea of if there's any additional incentives or tools we can bring to bear to help reduce water use other than the financial, let's funnel those ideas to Pete and take a look at it. I mean, I could see something as a rebate of whatever quote penalty you've paid. If someone's using that to rip out the water-intensive landscaping and put in some more xeriscaping or things like that, I think it has to be a quid pro quo. But I would certainly consider things like that.
Yeah. I've suggested this before. I know that this is controversial and there's mixed feelings on this, but like, I don't know why Wagner Park is real grass. It requires so much water. It requires closures multiple times a year to regrow the grass after we do events on it. Like, I actually think synthetic turf would be a much more appropriate material in that park. That's something that we could do and be sort of setting the example for the community on that.
I'd be open to a discussion and the pros and cons of that. There are issues with artificial turf, particularly when animals urinate or leave their tracks on it. It's very difficult to clean. There's also issues coming up. It's been a very odd type of study, but of increased cancer rates with goalies who get all the dust kicked up from these plastic particles and things like that. So there is deterioration of those materials. So it's worth taking a look at and see what our Parks Department says. But I'd be happy to look at it. We certainly put that sort of turf up for the high schoolers so they could get on the field early and practice sooner. So we'll see what else we can come up with, but we all know we're facing a real issue and a real problem with this.
So my request would be, we can continue to give you some ideas, but like, before staff comes to us with stage 3 with the same tools that have always been in place, I'd like to see some additional tools, incentives, et cetera, as part of that. And again, I do think that these tools can be generated on the fly. I don't think they need studies and land use code changes and things like that. I do think that we can make it as part of that process. Thanks.
Well, we'll take a look. Thank you. But nothing on the outdoor dining memo or other comments from council members on the water restrictions?
No, I think outdoor dining maybe can be revisited at a later time. But
Okay. Well, we always have staff here after those memos go out, so they can answer any questions.
thanks.
Thank you very much. We'll let you go. Appreciate you've heard our conversation. And now we will move on to the first scheduled agenda item, which is the Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park. And you've all read the staff report on council, and it looks like we have a number of representatives here who can speak to this. Council, I think what the bottom line question for us is that do we want to begin to support this? I think we may be one of the first to put in, if we do, to see if there's interest from other partners in trying to preserve this housing going forward. The Colorado Sun had a very interesting article this weekend. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read it, but it was talking about the 1, 2, 3 money the state has been putting out for housing. And it referenced that the state is losing 1 housing unit for every 2 it builds, and that they're not using that 1, 2, 3 money very effectively for preserving existing free market affordable or existing affordable where the tax benefit is expiring, and so therefore they're going free market. But I'll just use that as the introduction, and please introduce yourselves.
May I share my screen?
Please.
Mayor, I'll start off if that's okay.
Yes.
Diane Foster, City Manager's Office. The folks with us today, and they'll do most of the talking today, are from the Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park, located, the map you saw included in the staff report. I think the landmark that a lot of people know is the Habitat Restore towards the river from there. And these folks are coming in with asking for not all of the funding, but some support on that funding. And staff spent, Pete and I specifically spent time looking at this and doing some analysis about why staff might recommend or not recommend doing this, and landed in a place, frankly, that surprised me, simply because I was looking at this and thinking, wow, 55 mobile home parks is a lot, and if council has a line of, 54 behind these folks, that could be tough. And then I had a wonderful conversation with John Fox Rubin, who's here today, and he shared some data from Manaus that they had collected. Staff has not independently verified that, although I did make sure to look at the state's website of their identification of mobile home parks and compare, and the data looks pretty good. And it's basically like, I think it's a low probability just based on ones that are already protected, meaning owned by a nonprofit or owned by a government or otherwise have a deed restriction on them. I made up a category called benevolent owner. And I think that's real in one of the cases at least. And then things that are likely to be a viable ROC, resident-owned community, which are generally 25 to 50, 50 kind of 50 or more being a real sweet spot for the community being able to handle the financial burden and the operational burden of being a ROC. And with that, I'll hand it over to the folks from Cavern Springs. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Dubé, and I'm with Mountain Voices Project, MVP, with our organizer, Catherine Coe. MVP is a broad-based organization made up of public institutions from Aspen to Parachute, aimed to bring people into public life. Most recently, we joined with CC Coalition to make the Special District for Childcare a reality. And today, we're here with Cavern Springs residents, Tony Madrigal and Monica Muniz, as well as former Manaus Director John Fox Rubin. Thank you for your work for affordable housing, and thank you to your staff for their recent research on this topic. Today, we're asking you to pursue financial support to protect Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park. This is a home to 98 essential worker households and nearly 300 residents, one of the larger unprotected mobile homes closest to Aspen. The park is for sale, and the Residents Cooperative has until June 13th to make a competitive offer for a full $23 million. Tony and John and Monica will share their experiences with Cavern Springs and the importance of mobile home parks for their families. Tony?
I'm going to go first.
Oh, you're going to go.
Yeah.
Monica's going first.
I'm kind of short-limbed here. Hello, my name is Monica Muniz, a resident of Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park, and the vice president of our cooperative, Sopris Mountain Collective, which we formed to become a resident-owned community. This community is important to me because my husband and I have lived here for 36 years, raising our daughter and caregiving my deaf and special needs brother, Jose Alvarez, who enjoys going to his day program at Karen Connections in Rifle and going to physical therapy at Bridging Bionics, where he has benefited greatly. Jose also loves tending the garden in our home, in our yard, not in our home. We have created our lives here. We have developed long-term connections, and through fundraising to protect our housing, we have made new friends. One example of these connections is Marty Kotz, a resident who works at the Limelight Hotel. Between he and his coworkers, they ordered 140 pupusas at our most recent Pupusas for a Purpose fundraiser, which our community voted on doing, and we raised $3,500. And I just wanted to thank you for taking time for listening to us.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Tony Madrigal. I'm a resident of Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park. I was born and raised here in Aspen. I went to high school in Carbondale, and after graduating, started going to CMC for a business degree. But the cost of education was too high, so I had to drop off and join the workforce. Shortly after, in 2011, I found a job in property management here in Aspen. I have been working at that job since. Been promoted from labor to main contact for our clients, most of them who are second homeowners. For the last 14 years, I've been going up and down the valley, working in the same company. In February of 2016, I was able to find a place to call home in Cavern Springs. It's been a very conventional location to live, being south of Glenmore Springs and working 6 to 7 days a week in Aspen. Everyone in my household also works in Aspen. My sister-in-law cleans the important buildings, public buildings in Pickens County, including the 911 station and the homeless shelter. And my girlfriend works there too. It's not a place to sleep. Cavern Springs is a real neighborhood. It is quiet, safe, and all the residents are friendly, and we care about each other. To find affordable houses around to own or rent, you have to go all the way to Rifle, and cost of the gas and the time it takes to go from Rifle to Aspen is too much for my pocketbook and have the kind of quality of life. I can't imagine living somewhere else because of the long I have been calling this place home, and I would like to raise my family there so I can be in the same valley as I was born. I grew up. Thank you for listening. I love living in this place. There's no other place I can call home, Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for both coming in. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Fox Rubin, and I'm here primarily as a member of Mountain Voices Project. Mountain Voices Project, Ellen already described a little to you, but in my prior roles, I was an elected official, much like you, in Basalt, and one of the first things that we did is we enacted a 100% replacement ordinance for all the mobile home parks in our city limits. Turns out there weren't very many of them because one is part in Eagle County, part in Pickens County, and unannexed. We had some failures there in terms of preserving those mobile home parks shortly after the floods in Boulder, so I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons. And then when I was the director of Manaus, we decided to survey all of the mobile home parks from Aspen to Parachute and really understand more about them. But the reason this is very important to me is I was born in Aspen. I lived in Aspen Village as a child. It was an incredible community. I wish I still lived there. I live in Basalt. It's an okay community, but Aspen Village was phenomenal. Cavern Springs is a phenomenal community. We have the opportunity to help them become a resident-owned community, and this is the second opportunity. As you may know, there was the opportunity to purchase laws that came into effect in 2020, 2021. Cavern Springs got notice then that it was for sale for $18.9 million, and Manaus and Thistle tried to organize, the community was organized, but when they looked at the financing, they couldn't afford it. There was no way they could double their rent overnight. Today, with some subsidy from other communities such as Aspen, it's going to be possible to underwrite, and their financing will only be for $12-ish million. We are pursuing some Prop 123 funds through two mechanisms that can't work together. One is a grant program, and the other is a loan program. We've applied for $2.5 million from the grant program. It has very onerous restrictions on it. It wants to be the last money in. You need to prove that you have all the other money at the table. You have to do all the due diligence as if you are buying the mobile home park. Thistle has not had a success in partnering with anyone who's preserved units with Prop 123 grants. So we are also pursuing a potential loan with Prop 123 funds if we can't make the grant work. So we really are working to find a nice, elegant financial solution. However, the residents of the community are still going to face a dramatic rent increase. And that's the crime of this whole thing, is that it's not going to stay as affordable as it has been. But it's much better to see a dramatic rent increase and then only see 2 to 3% rent increase for the rest of your life versus every 3 to 5 years when a hedge fund decides to flip your park at a profit.
Thank you.
Okay, so we know that you are all familiar with what's at stake here. Once this park is sold again to an outside entity, like John said, it will no longer be affordable. We know this from experience, as John said, and we know that this park is valuable to Aspen. More than 40% of residents work in Aspen, sometimes 6 to 7 days a week, especially in high season. Investing in this at the same amount per unit that you did for the most recent parks this summer would translate into a contribution of $2.1 million, which is an investment of $21,000 per home to keep the park permanently affordable. So far, we've raised $1.2 million in equity from municipalities and foundations. We started the application process for DOLA funds for $2.5 million from DOLA. The Prop 123 funds, Mayor Richards, that you mentioned at the beginning of this work session. And we're working with Western Mountain Regional Housing Coalition as the applicant in that process. So we have a gap of $6.3 million left to raise to get to our goal of $10 million in equity by June 13th. I want to thank everybody for sharing their stories here and for sharing about this unique opportunity for Aspen to invest in naturally occurring, deeply affordable housing in our region. Council, we know you'll have questions, and we are ready to answer them. What would you like to know?
All right, well, thank you for throwing that back in. I think we all know there has been a proud history of investment in trying to maintain mobile home parks. And I think Smuggler was the very first that was designated resident occupied and saved for permanent residency. Lazy Glen was the first issue I became involved with when I was on the APSA board before I was first elected in the late 80s, early 90s. And we worked very hard. They had some support from, I think, the Stranahan family and others to be able to do that. Pickens County approached the city of Aspen in the 90s to loan them the money to buy Woody Creek Mobile Home Park. And then when it was subdivided and resold, they repaid the city the money from that. And then Aspen Village was saved through the county, particularly by the zoning and working with the property owners. And then they're now in the process of trying to preserve Phillips Curve mobile home property, which they purchased before that became three free market lots of 35 acres each. So I will just turn it over to my board for comments. Pete, you had done a good job outlining the resources we do have available. We do have very significant obligations coming forward with the lumberyard project and perhaps the opportunity for other land banking or other housing opportunities. They're a bird in a bush, and this is a bird in hand. So just kind of want to hear from all of you. What would you think? I personally would be supportive of contributing something to this project. I'm not going to try with numbers yet. John?
Yeah, initially when I saw this in the memo, I had concerns about more mobile home parks approaching us about this because we've had several recently. But thanks to Jonathan Fox-Rubin's research on this, there's only 3 other mobile home parks that would be eligible for this type of rescue. At any rate, I think I'm just reading right out of our memo, but because of the low risk of setting a precedent, because there are only 3 more at risk, and because 42% of the working residents are employed in Aspen, as it was stated in the memo, this is less of an environmental impact than building new units, and one of the greatest returns on investment in terms of affordable housing preservation. Kind of the same thing that we've been talking about with the other parks again, and again, I'm feeling pretty good about supporting this because this won't be happening again over and over. And recognizing that we do have a lot of funds already committed to the lumberyard and a lot of other housing initiatives. I won't comment on an amount right now, but I fully support this. I ran on housing, and housing is essential for everyone. And the workers that work in this mobile home park are essential to Aspen.
Thank you for that, John. Others who'd like to climb in? Christine, we'll go down the line.
Yeah, I'm initially supportive as well. I don't have an amount and echo some of the thoughts John had. And I also had some of the same reluctance before diving into some of the information here because of the amount of requests we might receive. And some of us were in attendance for the celebration last week for the 2 recent acquisitions for mobile home parks. And a conversation I had there was about how to make this entire enterprise more sustainable as these requests potentially do come forward. We have information. There might be few, but there may be more as well. And I don't know who we task with that or how to make that part of this, or maybe just more strategy moving forward. But I do think we need to formalize, or at least put some guidelines or parameters around how we're deciding which programs or which housing units or which developments might get money from us in the future.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
Yeah, share a lot of the comments. Attended that event last week for Aspen Basalt Mobile Home Park and Mountain Valley Mobile Home Parks. And yeah, you can see the return on investment there. You guys are members of our joint community, and we love you for that. And again, as far as sitting up here in this role, I'm going to steal from the memo as well and say that the return on investment, specifically to us at the city, has the potential to be quite high, where 42% of working residents are employed in Aspen, that the acquisition price is a small fraction of the cost to build a new unit.
Yeah.
So not only can we give an undefined amount to help you guys stay, but it's a very symbiotic relationship. So I'd be supportive of an undefined amount for that
Okay.
reason.
Thank you. Phil?
Thanks. Thanks for being here and for sharing your story and for the request and all the thoughtfulness that went into the memo. I certainly understand and agree with how important this housing is for our community. I understand and agree with how important these individuals and collectively, both individually and collectively, are for our community. But what I don't understand, and I'd like to hear some commentary on, is what happens if this doesn't become a resident-owned community? You talked about the threat and the risk and all these problems that would happen. And I'm not sure that I agree with them as it sits today, so could you talk to that a little bit more?
I'll just say my first thought is that if John announced that in 2020 or 2019, the homes were for sale at 18.9 million, and now it's already at 23 million, just over 5 years away, almost 7 years, then you can see that the increase of the value of the property just increases dramatically. So if it's consistently flipped at that value, for the rents have to support that type of value for a new owner to buy it. And so that's what we're seeing across the country is happening. So I just wanted to highlight that same argument of the inflation of the price. But when it's owned by the residents, it will not be continued to be inflated because you'll all own the land there and then they'll own their homes.
Well, I would counter as a real estate investor that just because someone wants rents to keep up with what you valued a piece of property at doesn't mean that they can or should. So I think that that's dangerous thinking. You know, if I say I'm going to pay $100 million for that park outside this window because I think I can get rent that will justify that purchase price, that's on me as a potentially bad decision.
Mobile home parks are very unique in that the mobile homes typically are not movable after someone moves into them. It's very rare, especially in this community, where if the rents go beyond what someone can afford, that they can actually move it to another more affordable park. So you have a very vulnerable and captive rental audience. So the two main threats are that the rents increase beyond affordability. And in this community, there are many people living on fixed income, and they're already at kind of where their threshold is, you know, that's beyond 35% of their monthly income in terms of how much they're paying. So part of it is losing affordability. The other is, depending on the zoning of the mobile home community, it can be redeveloped. So as a developer, you probably have seen opportunities of, hey, we've got a brownfield opportunity here. We buy a mobile home park, we increase the rents. There's a couple of cases in Denver where they didn't even increase the rents. They just evicted everyone. Most of the people couldn't take their trailers with them, so they were basically made homeless. those sort of redevelopment opportunities when it's in a location that's desirable. And the one in downtown Basalt right now is very much in that situation. Cavern Springs is actually a non-conforming use. It had a special use permit granted a long time ago, so it's not even conforming with the underlying zoning. The underlying zoning is a commercial, and it's in an area that could be redeveloped after it gets flipped once or twice. We just don't know. That's the uncertainty of living there for the families that live there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, but I think what you said is inaccurate. Colorado state law changed a year or two ago, and you can't simply kick everyone out of a mobile home park without replacing their housing unit.
I don't think that's entirely,
It is true.
okay. What happened in the past definitely happened, so I can
agree
point you
with
to that.
But it cannot happen moving forward, unless you replace housing units for all those people. But I mean, that's wild.
Okay, I don't want to argue on the specifics of the current law. I'd like to see it actually work once.
Do we have, I mean, there's the Pan and Fork redevelopment in downtown Basalt that the town was very involved and supportive of, right, removing that park. They were a player in that overall redevelopment. Is there another example of a mobile home park in this valley that has gone away?
I think we protected them. The last two were protected with your support, but the price of affordability, because of the value of the inflation of all of our home prices, this particular place allows affordability for people with fixed incomes. But there are other people who are also workforce housing, but could pay double, or even like if the rent is $1,050 right now a month, there are people that need housing in this valley who could pay probably $3,000 a month. So this is protecting a particular fixed income majority of the homes that are there. And that's why having to resell it when it is resold all the time, there still is a market for housing that's called affordable, but is becoming more than double and increasing that way. So I think that's.
I'm struggling with what you're saying there, because on the one hand, you're telling me that we have all these workers in Aspen, right? That's why this should be important to us, right? And that's not fixed income people. That's people who are earning hourly wages or salaries.
Well,
and then on the other hand, you're telling me that
I maybe used the wrong word of fixed, as well as a lower income than a professional, maybe a
Professionals.
professional, more higher income professional, but still worker housing. There are teachers that live there. There are, Tony's example, and the man that works at the Limelight, his example. I mean, those are good jobs, but they're not necessarily going to want to pay $2,000, and then the next year, or 5 years from now, if that rent were to double again, if it were resold.
Do we have any examples of rent doubling at mobile home parks in this valley?
We have an example of the company that's under contract to buy Cavern Springs of doubling the rent in a Jackson Hole Park that they bought in under 12 months.
And promising to fix essential water infrastructure and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me close my thoughts,
Okay,
please,
thank you.
Rachel. Again, I totally value all of you individually and collectively. I understand, I'm encouraging of the ROC model if you can pull it off. I just don't feel that contributing City of Aspen dollars to this is the best use of our dollars and the housing tax dollars that have been generated to create new housing units in our community. I don't think that this perceived risk is what you think it is. I haven't seen it in this community. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I think it's low likelihood. I think that mobile home parks are naturally occurring workforce housing, as you indicate on the title of your slide here. And I don't think that that means that rent should stay the same as it is forever and always. I think that it's okay for rents to increase, and that's a natural and normal part of our economy. I don't feel good about supporting this, not because I don't value these people, not because I don't think that what they're doing is not worthy and notable, or commendable, I should say, but I just don't think it's the right use of City of Aspen dollars. Thanks.
I appreciate your comments, Bill, and I can understand, we all come from different places on these things. I certainly have had experience with people who were in mobile home parks who, when the ownership flipped, they made new rules that they would not rent anymore to people with trailers over a certain age. And those people had to pull the trailers out, and they'll rent to new people who can bring in a brand-new trailer and can afford the higher things. My brother has a home down in Florida. I probably would get the town wrong if I said it, but it's near some of the Jupiter Beach, I think, type of thing. Pretty, and it was originally worker housing, but he's bought it for a second home. And it is, most of the neighbors there, it's second homes and retiree homes of second homes of snowbirds who flee the winter. So it really does and can happen. It's hard to say, at least answer your question of what has happened to mobile homes in this community, because we helped and organized to buy out Woody Creek Mobile Home Park, and we organized and bought out and worked with the owners to buy out Lazy Glen. So it didn't flip, but that was a model, and it was a long time ago too. But they had really great plans. We're going to add a swimming pool, and we're going to pave everything, and we're going to get rid of a few of these to space them out more, and your new rent is going to be X. And it was absolutely a doubling of who they wanted to house at the park. I think that's really the question of who do we want housed at the park? Should it become second homes? Should it become, and it sounds silly. We think, oh, second homes, but for a lot of people, hey, I'm right there in the hiking trails. I'm right next to these other little towns that are great. I can sell out my place somewhere else, and, this is all I need at this point in my life. And so I do think the threats are real. But leaving it as it is now, I'm just going to say we have 4 people on board who are interested in being able to participate in some level, who are looking at greater details on this. And we will look at the larger projections of our housing fund and obligations and come back with a number. I don't know that I can say we would be able to hit the 2.1 million that was pro rata based on the last program we put into. I think we kind of ended up putting in a little more at the end because other partners hadn't quite put in enough to make the finish line. And so we'll have to take a look at that. But I think there's a majority that are interested in moving forward with some assistance. And I don't know if I can give you a number now. Thank you.
That's fine. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have one more thing to say.
Just closing.
Oh, just the closing, right.
Okay.
Council, thank you so much for taking this time to meet with us and to learn more about this opportunity to work with Cavern Springs and on preserving affordable workforce housing in our community. We look forward to hearing the next steps.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it, and safe travels home. And we will move on to the next part of our agenda,
Thank you, Mayor.
which I believe is the special meeting, which I have to pull up.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I have to get onto the right item here. Special meeting, March 23rd. Here it is, pulling up. Mike, can you call to order the special meeting?
Councilor Benedetti,
Yes.
Councilor Doyle,
Here.
Councilor Guth,
Here.
Councilor Rose,
Here.
Mayor Richards.
Here. Thank you very much. We are going into an executive session following public comment to do a first 6-month review of our city manager, Pete Stryker. That was in our original hiring forms that we wanted a 6-month check-in, and we're just not going to let that slip. So it should be a good meeting. And from here, I will say, is there any public comment? By anyone? No, there's no public comment. So we will move into executive session if you'll give us our citations.
Mayor, staff has requested an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 24-6-402, subsection 4, subsection F, personnel matters, specifically the 6-month review of City Manager Pete Strecker. It does take a vote of 2/3 of council to move into executive session. My understanding is you would convene, this executive session will be held in Electric Pass. You would convene both executive session and the special meeting as there is no other business in Electric.
We will end this, not convene.
Or, yes, conclude.
Conclude.
Sorry.
Thank you. I thought there was another special meeting after this one.
No, I apologize for that
Okay.
confusion. I would also note that we keep a recording of these, the clerk's office keeps a recording of these executive sessions for not less than 90 days.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to go in executive session based on the citations?
So moved.
Thank you, Bill. And it's been made by Bill and seconded by Christine. Mike, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Benedetti?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes?
Counselor Guth?
Here, yes, sorry.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Richards?
Yes. Thank you very much. We're going to go into executive session.